Around 2600 BCE, a sprawling society thrived across present-day India and Pakistan. This was the Indus Valley civilization, and at its peak, it covered an area larger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. While the pharaohs of Egypt and the kings of Mesopotamia commanded laborers to build colossal tombs and towering ziggurats, the rulers of the Indus Valley directed their resources elsewhere. They bypassed giant monuments for the elite, focusing on practical infrastructure for the masses. Their defining breakthrough was sanitation. Thousands of years before the Romans, the Indus Valley engineered the ancient world's first widespread urban indoor plumbing. Homes featured private baths and early flush toilets, with waste plummeting down perfectly sloped terracotta pipes into covered street drains. The scale of this planning is visible in ruins like the Great Bath at Mohenjo-Daro. These cities were laid out on mathematical grids. Builders used kiln-baked bricks that were uniformly standardized across hundreds of miles, assembling massive public pools and sanitation structures that dominated the city centers. Every street, every home, and every civic building was integrated into a unified hydraulic machine. This was a society organized almost entirely around the mastery, movement, and management of water. Yet around 1900 BCE, the streets emptied out. These cities were systematically abandoned, despite the fact that archaeologists have found zero evidence of standing armies, no caches of weapons, and no signs of warfare. The builders simply walked away. Over the centuries, the river mud swallowed their brick grids. The civilization was buried until the 1920s, when railway workers and archaeologists stumbled across the massive ruins. Decoding their history has hit a dead end because they left behind no bilingual key, like a Rosetta Stone. The symbols carved into these tiny steatite seals remain unread, leaving the specific beliefs and laws of this empire a complete blank. This was a society with perfect infrastructure, vast resources, and no known enemies, and yet it dissolved. We are left to piece together why a massive, stable system would simply walk away from everything it built. For most of the 20th century, historians assumed the answer was violence. Early archaeologists theorized that a sudden invasion by nomadic groups from the north wiped out the Harappan cities. But modern forensic science dismantled that theory. When researchers analyzed the skeletal remains found in the upper layers of these cities, they found no sword marks, no battle trauma, and no evidence of massacres. This chart tracks the genetic makeup of the ancient Indus population based on recent DNA sequencing. It shows a complete absence of incoming steppe pastoralist DNA between 2600 and 1900 BCE. The region's genetic profile remained stable during the exact period the cities collapsed. No one slaughtered the Harappans. Their true killer left no blast radius and carried no weapons, making it invisible to early archaeologists. The true culprit lies in the geography. The Indus Valley civilization built its massive urban grids squarely along the basins of the Indus and Ghaggar-Hakra river systems. This map shows the layout of those ancient river networks. These waterways were not fed by constant glacial melt. They relied on the seasonal rhythm of the Indian summer monsoon rains to flood their banks and water the surrounding crops. Around 4,200 years ago, a global cooling event altered planetary weather patterns. The summer monsoons weakened and shifted eastward, pulling the life-giving rains away from the Harappan cities. On the ground, the effects were catastrophic. The steady, predictable rivers became erratic and eventually dried up. Without flowing water to fill the reservoirs and flush the drains, the most advanced agricultural and plumbing network on Earth ceased to function. You can engineer a perfect urban grid and invent a masterwork plumbing system to match it. But if the planet shuts off the tap, the city becomes a tomb. The transition from these cities was a strategic, gradual adaptation. The Harappans chose survival over their infrastructure, responding to the drying landscape by moving as a collective. Over the course of several centuries, the population packed up and abandoned their arid brick cities. They migrated eastward, following the shifting monsoon rains toward the fertile Ganges basin. This was a process of deliberate de-urbanization. The massive, centralized population fractured into hundreds of smaller, isolated rural farming communities that were self-sustaining and required a fraction of the water. This visualization shows that sprawling, complex urban network fragmenting into simple, scattered dots. Without an interconnected trade hub to maintain, the Harappans no longer needed their standardized stone weights. They no longer needed their bureaucratic seals. Eventually, they no longer needed their written script. A peaceful collapse looks like a society quietly stripping away every layer of its urban complexity for the simple purpose of staying alive. The Indus Valley civilization never truly went extinct. Their genetic markers and cultural legacy carried on through those rural migrations, forming the biological foundation of modern South Asian populations today. Today, thousands of years later, cities in that same region still struggle with the extreme whims of water. As modern commuters wade through flooded streets and traffic jams during unpredictable monsoon seasons, the ancient crisis feels remarkably close. Human ingenuity can build the most perfectly planned, peaceful utopias on Earth, but our ultimate survival remains entirely at the mercy of a changing climate.